Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm back to talk about this build-up, let's call it, to the new moon in Pisces. And it's a busy week. It's going to be an active week. I think we can personally use this week for a lot of inward assessment, or let's say intuitive guidance, and certainly planning and moving in the direction of what we want to see. And I'll speak more about that in terms of the actual new moon. But outwardly, this can be quite a testy time. And so be careful how you engage with the world, and even including online, because now we have a Mercury-Mars conjunction, which are always testy times, but with the combination of Rahu, or the North Node. And Mars today on the 13th, as I'm doing this, is conjoining the North Node. And that's really intense energy. This outwardly can cause some disruptions in events that are like a peak impact, a peak explosion, or a peak action, or a peak act that leads to something bigger than the sum of its parts. And that's all the more so because Mercury retrograding back to that point is in the sign of its detriment and fall. And what that means is that this is an emotional energy. So Mercury, when it's in water signs, is highly emotional, and it's not really able to work in the cool, rational way, for example, that it does in an air sign or in an earth sign, for example. When it's in Pisces, it's much more about seeing patterns, seeing behavior in a bigger picture, and tying up the symbolism of that, or working in a symbolic way, or working in a way that sees I'm trying to think because I've got Mercury in Pisces, in fact, on Scheat. So here we go. It's seeing things beyond an intellectual mind. It's seeing things that connect with a bigger story than the limited individual situation that we might be examining. So Pisces, Mercury in Pisces can miss some of the details, but it gets the mood and the feeling and the overall picture of what's going on. And now what's happening with Mercury retrograde and backing into Mars and the North Node is that there can be some confusion, because the North Node itself is the part of the, well, both the North and South nodes, the part of the chart, a mathematical point of the elliptical orbit of the moon with the sun, the movement of the moon with the sun, where they cross over. And that creates the eclipses. So even when there's no eclipse, when the planets touch on the North Node, it has the effect of eclipsing the energy of the planet. And that can also, especially on the North Node, disturb the activity, make it more obsessive, make it more compulsive, make it more expanded. And this is also a bigger story, because now we have a strong stationary direct Jupiter, which is ruling all of that. Now it's on Sirius, and that's the brightest star in our galaxy, and that's something that we can see as a potential for auspicious new beginnings, and that's where I'm going with this. whether we truly believe it or not, this is what we can hope for, and the hope is, I think, worth maintaining, because this is on Scheat, where the new moon is happening after these few days of chaos and disruption and expanded potential for confusion. I'm just going to throw in very briefly that this is also an expanded likelihood of events that are not as they appear. So false flag type events can stir up a lot of chaos, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion. Now, all of these fixed stars, whether it's Scheat or whether it's Algol or whether it's Sirius, often have that flavor of chaos, and that's part of the delineation from the ancient times. And one of the things that we can find, and I've spoken about this before if you've been following me for a while, because these placements in the wheel, in the tropical zodiac, are really strongly impacted over the last couple of years. So once again, we have this tie-in between Scheat, between Algol, and between Sirius, all intermingling and talking to each other. So if we look at Scheat, it's the energy of the intellectual mind being overridden or collapsing, even where it's not functioning any longer. And this ties into what I was just saying with Mercury. It's where thoughts and ideas and beliefs and words lose their meaning, because we're actually moving into that cosmic soup, the universal soup of truth and knowledge. And that's the knowledge that goes beyond language. It's beyond meaning. Mercury is language and thought. And so when that happens, there can be this, the misunderstandings of the everyday mind. They start to make less sense. We're not really clear. We can get into conflicts over beliefs. We can get into conflicts over thoughts with this particular concentration of energy. But then what can happen through that is if we step back and gain perspective and realize that the thoughts themselves are not real, that they're events that occur in our mind, that is a field that has been for years or decades picking up on information unconsciously, and then things arise in our mind. We don't know where they arise from. Though when we step back and we see, oh well, this is all just kind of these things moving around on a game board or like clouds moving through the sky, you realize you can step back from the thoughts. If you're aware of your thoughts, you know that there's an observer of the thoughts. And this is where Scheat can take us, because this energy, which is, again, the equal to Pisces, and especially symbolized by Mercury there in Pisces on the North Node, it's really about the collapse of belief systems, and especially these hyperbolic belief systems that are misguiding us into a very dangerous future. That is something that we can, on a personal level, expose within ourselves, seeing these thoughts are not real. There's no reality to these thoughts. There's no reality to these beliefs. They are fleeting. They come and go. They distort themselves. They come and go in waves depending on our emotions, which is also part of an interaction with thoughts and feelings. And they're highly influenceable, and that means that because they fluctuate, they cannot be true, because truth is permanent. Truth is untouchable. And this is where we need to put a lot of our attention in these days, which are going to be deliberately or otherwise very confusing times and very disruptive times as well. So Scheat is exposing the false, exposing the beliefs, exposing the fragility, let's say, of the intellectual mind. Mercury backing into Mars and on the North Node can perhaps in some cases do that, but through learning the hard way, because often with the fixed stars, one of the messages is that we're learning the hard way how to get to the right place. So when we strip away all these illusions and these confusions, we finally get to the place of knowing, knowledge, pure gnosis. So that is something I'm sticking with. It's also in the mystical realm, it's highly mystical. It also links to the beauty of life, poetry, music, and all of those beautiful aspects, which is also part of our humanity. And that's also where we're going to find the moon coming up in the new moon phase. Now, if we look back to Algol is about the destruction of the illusions that ties in with Scheat, where Scheat is really about a sense of the mind. But Algol is showing us where we've been tricked. It's showing us where things have not been what they seem. And it also has this notion of losing one's head, losing one's head of government, or literally being decapitated. Or when we speak in English, we say losing one's mind. And when we've lost the mind, we can, if we're highly aware, we can recognize again that the mind was part of the illusion. And that when we come to that place of no mind, as the Buddhists might call it, this is where we reach the true self. This is where we reach the knowing. Again, the gnosis, the knowing of the truth is where we're ideally as humanity going. So these two together are really about stripping illusions. And what Sirius does is it shows us through, again, the difficulty, through the turmoil, through the chaos, our higher purpose. And we tie all of these things together so that we can start to realize our higher purpose is not about a job. It's not about a marriage or a partnership or anything like that. It's not a temporal thing. Our higher purpose is to find ourselves in the meaning of the life that we're living, in the life as we proceed through the humanity, through the human phase, as it were, the material phase, into something that has a higher resonance. And I say higher not in the sense of a hierarchy, but just in terms of this feeling of the material world dissolving into something which is much more vast. And that's, again, closer to the truth which is what we're ideally trying to approach before this lifetime ends. This is certainly the path that every spiritual tradition lays out for us. So we're looking at the suffering having meaning and purpose through service, because we're always looking at that way of being together, being here for. And if we're here for something, it means that it's something that is not us. We're here to help, we're here to educate, we're here to love, we're here to be with each other. And I think these are the messages that this moment in time urgently is conveying. If we can look at that from the higher, again, more universal or more spiritual perspective, that all of this energy is asking us to take seriously and has been for quite some time. Bear in mind that Neptune is on Scheat for much of 2026. It already has been for most of 2025. And this is where we are in this kind of spiritual battle. This is part of the moment, this crunchy time that we're all living in terms of our humanity. So this series where we still have Jupiter there for this next couple of weeks, in this moment in time, is giving meaning and purpose to what is life all about. This is really, really essential. Let me just check in my notes to make sure I've said all those things that I wanted to communicate about this. Oh yeah, there's a shadow. Of course, there's always a shadow. So Sirius, the shadow of Sirius is the missionary zeal. This is where we find the desire to impose, a desire to oppress, a desire to impose one's way of life, one's beliefs, one's way of governance, one's way of working with money, etc. You get the point. And that is part of the savior complex, which is also linked with Sirius in the shadow, because if the belief is that we are separate, we also believe that we have an idea that needs to be imposed. If we understand fully in the truth of things that there is no separation between us, then there's nothing to impose on another. There's something very interesting to meditate on as Mercury backs into the North Node and Mars. Algol itself can lead to rage. It's an angry, these are all red stars, bright stars. Actually, Sirius is more of a blue star. It's a newer star compared to the older stars that are bright, bright, bright red, but Sirius is the brighter in terms of the color that we see, more white, blue in the sky. But Algol is hot, red, and fiery. It's this kind of energy of anger. And it's Algol itself, it comes from the original Arabic, which was Al-Ghul, which is where we get our word for alcohol. And so it's an angry demon. And again, if we look at alcohol and what that does to the mind, to the liver, and to the human being, it is an angry demon. So this is something to keep in mind. There are all these messages of warning as well as of potential. And then Scheat has the shadow aspect of nihilism and despair. And I'm hearing a lot of that from a lot of people. And this is where, again, I want to emphasize this agency that we have to conduct our mind, our heart, and our own day-to-day life in a way that is positive and constructive. And if you're starting to get nihilistic, if you're feeling despair, it means you're disconnecting from other people. So reconnect to real people, to real other people. And even if that means that your connection itself has to be online, but you're talking to a real person, you're not talking to a girlfriend or boyfriend on ChatGPT or something like that. You must be in a human connection. If that really doesn't work for you for whatever reason, connect with animals, feed birds, go out and, when you see dogs being walked in the street, ask the owner, can I pet your dog? Can I have a minute with your dog? But connect with something that's real, tangible, and alive. Because nihilism is a downward spiral that is simply a product of the mind that has turned itself towards itself. And this is where we want to catch ourselves, because these are intense times. It's going to be super easy to do that. Right. Having said that, just maybe now I can remember to introduce myself. I work with people as a consulting astrologer, and I bring a lot of mind-body experience into my consultations. So If you're interested in working with me in a one-on-one consultation, I don't have a lot available, especially in the next couple of months, but do make an appointment. It might take a couple of months to see me, but if you're particularly stressed at this time or you're really struggling, I think astrology is just the most extraordinary tool for helping us find our way into understanding, into greater understanding. What I want to do as well, and also the details are below. I'm so bad at marketing myself. So the details are below in the description box, as they are every single time I upload a video. So you're very welcome to connect with me via my website below. And if it's too much for you right now, or you want to hear information maybe a little bit quicker, you can also still get my annuals. The annual reports are 2.5 hours, in some cases more. And it describes all of these energies going through the year in a way that you can actually work with. And that's the closest thing that you'll get to a reading with me in the immediate short term. And they're very cheap now. I think it's €9, and then you can get 3 for the price of 2. So really, really cheap at this point. And I hope that's helpful for you. So as always, I do with the new moon, I do the dates that we're going back in time with. Hang on, I just have to call in my new moon. And the new moon itself is at 2827 of Pisces. Now, this is a really interesting, again, point, because this particular degree has been an inflection point for so many, months at least, and years, actually. And it's, again, really, really tight. It's just over a degree from Scheat. And the next thing that happens after this new moon is that the moon crosses immediately into the arms of Scheat and then into Neptune. And this is where we can start to work with this energy of forward momentum, starting to imagine and visualize our life, visualize the dream. Because the next thing that the moon is focusing in on is this intuitive awareness, this sense of, that sense of exposing what is false and seeing what is real, letting go of what is false, whether it's your own internal message, or if it's the messages you're receiving from outside, and seeing that and letting it go. Pisces is the end of the zodiac. It's about shedding and letting go, releasing. We're in a huge collective moment of releasing, and we can interpret that personally also as a way of really therapeutically releasing ourselves from so much. And so as we find at this new moon, we've still got Mercury retrograde on the North Node. So again, this is a time to go inwards. The new moon is when the sun and the moon are conjoined. It's dark. It's also known as the dark moon. And when the sky is dark, it's a time to withdraw, come inward, and focus in on what it is that you're feeling and sensing, especially in Pisces. What intuitive guidance are you receiving? How are your dreams unfolding, or how are your dreams, have they been disrupted by this potential energy of nihilism, and what's the point, and who cares anymore, and do you dare still to dream? And I hope you do. And so come back to this place of not just dreaming and wafting off into the dream, because that can also be Pisces, where there's a lot of wishful thinking and detachment and dissociation, daydreaming, but no action. And Mars here on the North Node is saying, take action. Based on all of the days leading up, the 6-7 days leading up to this new moon, Mars is saying new action is required. Start a new cycle, start a new program. And Mars in Pisces is about this spiritually driven action. And notice I'm not saying religiously driven. It's ideological, but it has to be grounded in something that is of a higher worth. So in its lower shadow manifestations, it can be highly ideological. And this is the danger, of course. That's the shadow side of everything I've described, including the Jupiter in Cancer, which can be very nationalistic. And it's this Jupiter that's ruling this lunation, as well as this conjunction between Mercury, North Node, and Mars. So Rahu clouds our judgment, but it can also expand ideas and notions and have a sense of now a renewed commitment to something. What we have faith in, find it and dig deep during the new moon. And then when you start to see the crescent moon, as the moon is growing in the sky, usually by the 19th, 20th, you're going to start to see that. Certainly by the 20th and 21st, you'll see the crescent moon forming. Yeah, not the 19th, by the 20th or 21st, you'll see that in the sky. And traditionally, that's when the tradition holds that you shouldn't really reach out into something until you start to see that moon taking form. When it takes shape in the sky, it's now that there's things that are underway. The darkness has been giving us information, cluing us in, giving us ideas, and allowing us to shed and release the previous cycle. And now, as we go forward, we're starting to see the moon is growing. And when the waxing moon is the time to lay new territory, lay new grounds, do new things. Get involved, get out there, do things, because the next thing after the moon encounters Scheat is that it goes into Aries. And then following that, on the 20th, again, we have the ingress of the spring equinox when the sun moves into tropical Aries. I did a video with S.J. Anderson a few days ago, which was really focused on that and how it's impacting us for the next few months. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, it was a great conversation. I had such a great time talking and bantering back and forth with him. And we'll come back and we'll look at all these times again as soon as we can. But you can get more information about that through that video. So here what I want to point out is that each of these lunation cycles is a beginning and an end when we come to the new moon. So it's both the flip side of the newness and also the letting go from the previous cycle. And I want to give you some dates to look at in terms of the lunar family. So the previous cycle, which is ending at this new moon, began with the new moon on the 21st of March, 2023. Now that was the day that Pluto, or within a day, that Pluto moved into Aquarius. I find this really, really pretty cool, actually, because that's, I think, a significant thing that suggests that we've completed that cycle of this tenuous start with Pluto in Aquarius, and now this is the new normal. This is the way forward with Pluto in Aquarius. So 21st of March, the lunation there was at 0 degrees and 49 minutes of Aries. And again, this is a tie-in with everything that's happening in the week around this new moon, as we have Neptune very close to that point, and we'll have both the sun and the moon moving across that very quickly after this new moon. So when we look at the lunar families, notice that they go backwards in time. They're in the retrograde, or the precession of the zodiac. So the first quarter moon of that cycle that began 21st of March 2023, again at this at the Aries ingress, that was the impact of that entrance of the Aries ingress with Pluto. So think of the resonance again now. The 19th of December 2023 was when we had the first quarter moon of that, and that was 27 degrees and 35 arc minutes of Pisces. Interestingly, again, the 19th of December corresponds so closely with the ingress of the sun into Capricorn and the start of winter in the northern hemisphere. And then we had the 18th of September, which was an eclipse in 2024. And on the 18th September 2024, the moon was, or the eclipse was, at 25 degrees and 40 arc minutes of Pisces. And then last year, on the 18th of June, and that's significant for now, because that was when the 12-day war, where Israel launched missiles at Iran, and that lasted 12 days until Israel asked for through the United States, asked for a ceasefire. That is when, around the time that was happening. I think it was between the 12th and the 24th of June last year. So this was the last quarter moon of this previous cycle that we're ending now. And that was at 27 degrees and 47 minutes of Pisces. Now we come to today, which is, of course, the 19th of March Universal Time. If you're in North or South America, it's the 18th of March. And this is at 28 degrees, 27 minutes. And this we can see very clearly here. And then the next phase related to this in the lunar family is the first quarter phase. And that is 25 degrees and 17 arc minutes of Pisces on the 17th of December of 2026. So later this year. And on the 15th of September of 2027, at 22 degrees and 52 arc minutes of Pisces. Interesting, that's where roughly where Mercury is stationed to go retrograde in February. I think it was the 26th of February. That's where we're going to find the full moon phase that corresponds to this new moon. And again, if we look at this from a smaller cycle, we can say the eclipse itself was the new moon, the full moon, the 3rd of March eclipse was the full moon of this particular mini phase of the lunation cycle and the monthly cycle. And then the previous eclipse of the 17th of February was the new moon that began this mini cycle. So in a short-term phase, it's a very, very impactful cycle. And here we're just looking at the longer arc of time, which takes a span of 3 years. So it's 9 months between each, which is also why we call it the lunar gestation period. And then finally, we have the 15th of June, 2028 at 24 degrees and 36 arc minutes of Pisces. And those are the corresponding degrees of this lunation going forward. So I'll put that in the description box below. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say here. Again, we're looking at a lot of the bigger stories that are coming through in ways that are just the background to all of these smaller changes. So they continue, the journey continues, and of course, one of those is now very soon after this new moon. And actually, as we get into the equinox, Saturn and Pluto are going to be sextiling. And again, I suspect that has a lot to offer us in terms of what we can actually do with the desire to move forward. And so this is why I've been saying, even in the annuals already, this is the period of time where we can start to see ourselves able to move forward in a way that feels like, okay, we're grappling with this new normal, with this new thing, and we are finding our way forward. Keep in mind the highest mission of Pisces and the higher value of all of these fixed stars is insight and awareness. It's something that we can personally really benefit from, even if that's not happening collectively as easily as we would like it to be. So that 29-degree critical degree of Pisces is that what the Indians call the Gandanta point, which is the movement of the energy of water into fire. And it's one of the most challenging thresholds of the astrology. And even though these, the sign delineations and the differences between constellations are pretty made up, they're just a human concept. They don't have any actual reality. The symbolic reality is of a finalization of something. It's the end of a big cycle, a smaller cycle and a bigger cycle. So think of this as some point of spiritual intensity. And certainly the deeper we dig, using our mind as a tool, as opposed to following the mind. We use the mind as a tool to really figure out what is real, what is not real. So Bernadette Brady, who works a lot with these fixed stars, she said that this point was, she called it a prominent point in the charts of free thinkers, inventors, and creative individuals. So again, think about this. You can work with what seems to be impossible as we sit perhaps in this moment or as you're hearing me, and we can create the possible. And this is the symbolism of so many placements that are speaking to us in 2025, 2026, and 2027. So please don't fall into that despair, don't fall into that nihilism, and move yourself in the direction of where you want to go with your life, with your collective, with your family, with your pet bird, with whatever it is, and focus from the inner guidance that you get, focus forward. And you will really start to see something that's helping, that's really working in this new direction. I just want to mention before we do the all signs super quick that I recently had a conversation. Every year around my birthday, I find an astrologer that I like and I get a reading from them. And yesterday I had a reading from Angela Tiki. Angela Tiki, sorry for that, Angela. Angela Tiki, I thought I was getting it backwards. So Tiki, she's a Greek astrologer who's absolutely delightful, and I am going to invite her on the channel. And she specializes in the Vesta, Pallas. I think she's really specialized in Pallas, Vesta, Pallas, Juno, Haumea, etc. All of what do we call them? Oh my God, I'm so tired. Anyway, the minor planets, and so those asteroids, those minor planets, those points in the chart, which are extremely powerful, which I don't use very much, are speaking very loudly, especially now. But even especially at this new moon, I actually have Juno. I follow these things in my own chart, but I don't talk about them here. But I have Juno in my chart, exactly where this new moon is, and it's also right next to my Mercury and my daimon, which is also known as a part of spirit. So I am following this closely for myself. But she helped me see the importance of following these things in general, and we're going to look into that with her. And we see Juno, which is actually on my descendant at the end of, it's in the 27th to the 28th degree of Capricorn. Maybe it's right into Capricorn, but it is actually in a square, in a sextile to this lunation, and it's in a trine to Uranus. So again, that notion of Juno coming together in relational dynamic, coming together in relationship, building relationship, finding bridges to build relationship. This is the deep meaning, again, that we can draw from this. And actually, just because I'm talking about it, I'll put it up here on the chart. Yeah, so it's 27 degree into, so it's approaching the sextile with the new moon, and it's approaching the trine with Uranus. It's the opportunity to change relationships. And if I throw up Pallas, because why not? We see Pallas as the next thing to be conjoined with Mars. Pallas is wisdom. It's understanding intuitively in a way that's I've kind of been describing with all these other aspects. Understanding intuitively, just unknowing this is the direction to go, standing firm. It's the divine feminine. Athena is, I always think of it as Pallas Athena together. It's the divine feminine, Sophia, kind of wisdom, and or Saraswati if we're thinking in terms of the Indian astrology. So dig into yourself, dig deeper into your heart and your intuition, and find that wisdom, find that inner guidance. And you will see that this is where you're going to find great results as we go forward. Don't fall into the trap of things are not going to work out, things are horrible, things are not going my way, etc. All right, let's quickly do a little spin around the zodiac. Here we're going to try and put, whoopsie. I can't go forward, can I? Okay, we're going to go a day before for putting Aries on the ascendant. Wait a second. Right, I see the problem here. This software, for whatever reason, doesn't let you go day by day. You lose the configuration of the, I lose my title. I'm going to keep my title. So here we're going to go backwards, and we're going to put Aries on the ascendant. And if my brain were online, should have had that coffee. And if my brain were online, this wouldn't be taking so long. So the new moon technically is universal time on the 19th. Here we've moved it back a day just to get through the aspects and keep that lunation configuration. Okay, so it's not exactly as shown here. And so for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, what we have here is a 12th house placement. So you have a very literal transposition of what I've just been saying here. There's a lot of deep digging for Aries. I've spoken about this many, many times. Jupiter is ruling that 12th house, but it's now direct. And Mars, your ruler, is part of this really prominent configuration with the North Node and Mercury, where you're implicating a lot of your energy and attention, your sort of symbolic self, in this new vision for things, vision for your own life, or vision for how you want things to transpire. I think for Aries particularly, you're going to have enormous revelations, and those revelations can come through relationships with others. They can be revelations about your own psychological or emotional state, or family, or whatever is close to your heart, where you've come from, even your national identity or your inherited identity. Something very profound and spiritual is possible for you at this time. And again, with all of this extra emphasis happening here in your first house, we've spoken a lot about you on the precipice of change. But everything that's happening here is a way of saying the ending of something that you're feeling. It's not something that that you haven't considered up till this point. So your feeling is like there's something that you're really done with. If that's about a relationship, then take your part of the responsibility. It's very disempowering to say, I'm so done with everything. It's that kind of, I haven't contributed to this in any way, and everything else is a pain in the neck. And so beware of that. You take your part of responsibility. This is what Saturn is asking you to do. Guide yourself with that responsibility. And here you've got Juno here in the 10th house for you, and that's part of this configuration. You'll hear that in the introduction, and that's speaking to either your marital status or your social ambitions, your professional ambitions, your career or your vocation. And so a lot of this is tying into that in terms of new connections. But you can't really make new connections that feel solid and real without taking your share of the responsibility. And Venus, which rules your house of relationship, is right there in your first house, emphasizing the point. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Make the most of this, and I'll be back very soon with the solar ingress into your sign. Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This is happening in your 11th house of your future and the vision that you hold for your future. It can also be related to gains or the money that you earn from what you do, or gains that you achieve, or things that you receive through others, in terms of benefits, in terms of things that friends are helping you out with. It's not necessarily in the sense of the 8th house receiving things directly through partnership, but you can have somebody helpful come into your life at this time. And if it's not the case, and if there's something about losing a friendship, and that's actually one of the other meanings of Scheat, actually, it's about recognizing when friendships are ready to end. It's time to go. It's time to close up shop and move in a different direction, or simply, gracefully move on, because you're evolving, you're changing. Certainly with the Uranus on your first house, that's true. But this creates a vision for you. So you're also able to see that as friends come and go, or they are no longer on the same page with you, it's nobody's fault. Think of it again as, this is my new vision. This is my new direction. This is where I feel I'm best serving society, serving my future, serving my goals. This is the 11th house of long-term goals and how I want to see myself going forward. Your ruler Venus is in your 12th house. So again, a lot of this emphasis is again tied into, as I was saying in the beginning, intuition into your inner dreamlike state, understanding things through mystical symbolism or dreams or messages that come through a deep place of awareness. I think it's going to be your best way forward. So stay steady right now, and if there is somebody who is moving away in terms of friendship or partnership of some kind, because Mars rules your relational dynamic in the 7th house, then this is the time. Mars rules your 12th house as well, so there can be loss in an actual literal sense that might be something that you come to a realization around, or it's something that you're preparing yourself for in these times. And that loss can be something that even has already happened, and you're just starting to have realizations around the impact in your life of losing that person or that money or that thing, that idea as well, as I said in the introduction. And Jupiter is helpful from the 3rd house, giving you lots of creative input, lots of creative ideas, a desire for connection. And we have Juno also saying the same thing, having this a desire for connecting with people around the idea of, life themes, or what's important, what do you have faith in, what do you believe in right now. So I think I see this as something that's incredibly enriching for you right now. All right, Taurus, I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, your ruler, still retrograde, still on the North Node, and it's for a very, very long time. So you might find yourself just itching to go and do stuff and get involved and reach out, but not really clear how. So be careful to also hold back a little bit, because Mars rules your sixth house of everyday work, and it's ruling your friend's house as well, and the house of future, where we find Aries. And Mars is on the North Node with Mercury, your ruler. So be careful not to get into arguments. This is a dangerous time to be a big mouth. It's a dangerous time to talk back to authority figures. Again, unless you're prepared to back it up. Obviously, you do you, but it can be a time where people are actually struggling with how you're showing up, because they might find you, maybe overly ambitious or overly forceful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be that way. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that this will be the walking on eggshells kind of dynamic. The ruler of your relational sector is Jupiter in the second house now, and Jupiter also rules your 10th house. So you're moving in a new direction that has been something you've been contemplating, especially since not July, August. I forgot to mention that Jupiter was here in August, around the 17th of August. Jupiter was at this point. So you can look at mid-August as a way of understanding where you are working forward now based on that particular event or that sense of what was going on in August. But I think as long as your ruler is retrograde, which is right up until the 20th, you're not really going to have that sense of, okay, things have become unstuck and I'm moving forward. So just give it a little bit of time. It's not much time ahead, but it might feel incredibly frustrating. On the other hand, you might also have some absolutely brilliant insight. You have all the little ducks are lined up in a row for fantastic insights at this time. Things coming through dreams, things coming through intuitive hits, or things coming through casual conversation with people as you're going out and about in your day that inspire you, that give you a sense of hope or a sense of vision. And it might even be what you're hearing in me right now, but it could be some old lady on a bus, for example. So look at that as well. Open yourself, open your mind as wide as you can. That's actually quite typical for a Gemini to have a very wide open mind, and test all kinds of new ideas, especially in terms of your personal ambitions, your career goals, or where you want to find yourself going forward. Okay, Gemini, I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, this is an extraordinary time for you and all other water signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are incredibly supported at this time. It's a ninth house new moon for you. The ninth house is lucky. It's a visionary house, and it's tying in with the fifth house, another lucky house, which is ruled by Mars for Cancer. Equally, you now have a direct Jupiter at 15 degrees of your first house, and that's something that's going to help you feel also now you're moving in a better direction, or you're moving, full stop. You're able to get off the couch and go forward. I have this configuration. I have a Pisces stellium, and I have the ascendant and moon in Cancer, and I've just been so tired. Like, wipe the floor with me. I'm so tired. I'm really, really excited about feeling things moving forward in the next week or so, where I also realize, and this is what I'm suggesting to you, I risk having I can do more moment where there's this potential for taking on more. So check this out as you're going through this phase of the new moon, and really listen in. Am I on the right track? Am I following my vision? Because this is the ninth house of your vision for life, not just this moment, but this bigger picture vision of why you're here. Am I following what I have faith in, my genuine sense of belief and faith? As opposed to being, told, but you're coming deep inside. Jupiter in the first house is giving you an opportunity to really feel the inside message of what this moment holds for you. Mercury is still retrograde, and so glean a lot coming from inside, or from the reflection that you've been doing since the 26th of February. So that's basically Pisces season, as Mercury has been here and was retrograde. And Mercury continues to be here all the way till mid-April. So there's a long journey of understanding this new mission. Take your time. Don't rush into things. Mars might have you, especially here on the North Node, feeling like I've got to get this done. I've got to do more. I've got to add more to the thing. Don't get into discussions around other people's beliefs and faiths. You're wasting energy, and this precious energy is needed right now with Jupiter in your first house to help you expand into the next thing. Mars rules your 10th house of career. It rules your 5th house of creative self-expression, potentially children as well, and entrepreneurship and artistic creativity as well. So this can also be part of business planning or planning for the future, planning as a parent, planning for your parents, something around your children, finding something happening in the lives of your children that's very inspiring. This is also the house of the Father. It's God the Father as well as Father, and that Christian way of looking at that. And so there might be also some new events or realizations around your own father or father figures, teacher figures, counselors, guides, etc. Prominent people in your life. And anyway, this is a big time for you to really be you, pull in that intuition that you're known for. And, Mercury is there on the North Node, it's retrograde, and it rules your 12th house, which is one of the reasons that Cancers are so in tune with their mind and the thinking from behind the scenes. But it also can lead to high anxiety, which is also Mercury in its fall and detriment on the North Node with Mars. So Mercury also rules your 3rd house, also connecting to the mind. So again, calm, take lots of showers and meditate in quiet. Don't let yourself get pulled outwards if you can avoid it around this time. There's enough time to be pulled outwards, it's coming. And if you're being too much pulled outwards, then just maybe state those boundaries more clearly. Here you have Juno in the house of the other, and here is where you can find a more appropriate connection with somebody that's important to you, whether it be clients or your spouse or very important people, including people that support you as well. New ways of showing up here around what you need. This is the new insight, I would say, for Cancer. Good luck with that, Cancer. I'll see you in the next video. Leo, of course, every time there's a new moon, this is also including your ruler, the sun, and this is a very big moment. I forgot to say for Cancer that the moon is eclipsed when it goes through the new moon. I'm going to actually backtrack to say that. Hang on. You hang on here just a minute. We're going to give Cancer another minute. Cancer, I'm coming back to you. So Cancer, I forgot to mention that your ruler, obviously the moon, is involved in every lunation. And when there's a new moon, the moon is eclipsed. So the moon is the light of the moon is dimmed by the light, the brightness of the sun. So we don't see the moon, obviously. We call it a dark moon. And so because the sun is taking precedence, the emotions and the internalization of feelings can become quite intense, and all the more reason to slow your roll and stay, close to yourself. Stay inward, feel yourself going forward rather than try to project yourself going forward outwardly. And as much as possible, get sleep and rest, because this is also really a moment for taking care of yourself as a way of kind of preparing yourself for the outward motion that's coming very, very quickly afterwards. Okay, back to Leo. Right, Leo, thank you for your patience. So Leo, sun, moon, and ascendant, the sun is also involved in these lunations, of course, every time. And the sun itself, when it's with the moon, is taking the energy of the moon, meaning that can make you feel a little bit emotional, or it can have you feeling more deeply. And here in Pisces, it's the 8th house for Leo, sun, moon, and ascendant from those placements. And so you're looking also potentially in the symbolism of the moon as the field of the mind, and it's the mind-body complex or the heart-mind complex, or even the gut-heart-mind complex, because of course they're all tied in. And so here you're really thinking deeply. You've got the Mercury, North Node, and Mars conjunction as well that I spoke about in the introduction, all of which are in the place in your chart which require some deep inner analysis or focus inward in terms of your intimate relationships, including your relationship to yourself, particularly psychologically, or in terms of patterns that you've inherited from family, or in terms of dynamics that you are carrying because of relationships. So all of those things are very powerful for you now to think in terms of letting go, shedding, releasing, and moving in this new direction. So much to work with here for Leo, because it's really important that you have a sense of there's something I'm really clear of now. Jupiter is helping you with this, bringing down more clarity from the 12th house of the unconscious mind. Subconscious, unconscious place between the 8th and 12th house can also represent dreams and insights. And you're becoming more aware of how that's impacting you or how that's influencing your behavior and how you reach out into the world. And things are going to take a dynamic shift after this new moon. I'll bring another video to talk about that as the sun, your ruler, moves into your 9th house, where it's actually in the house of its joy. And that's where, of course, we have the equinox and the beginning of the northern hemisphere spring, southern hemisphere autumn. So lots to work with here, but really work on shedding fears, shedding things that feel like insecurities or difficulties that you've borne in the past, and renew this energy. And that also ties into the relational dynamics and the dynamics of how you connect with people on an intimate level. All right, so I'll see you in the next video. So for Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you've got an enormous amount of activity in your house of relationship. This has been a huge theme. I've been talking to you about this for now over 2 years. It's a big deal to have so much going on in the relationship sector, and a lot of what you're closing out here or what you're renewing has been brewing. It's been there under the radar maybe for a very, very long time. So most of what's going on here is not necessarily going to be a surprise to you. It's just different phases of this pattern of releasing and regenerating relationships. You have Juno in your 5th house here, which is sextile to the lunation, and it's trining Uranus in your 9th house of your sense of your faith in life and what you're here for and so on. And this will tie in romantic relationships or relationships with children, or if you're working in business, some kind of entrepreneurial story of connection and how you're relating in that dynamic. This is, I think, something that is really important for you to pay attention to. It's your ruler that is retrograde and on the North Node, meaning that it's maybe judgment is clouded, or it's not yet ready to see, or it's not really able to find the solution at this point. But Mars is also part of this configuration and has been for the days leading up. So I do hope you see this before the new moon. So you might have found yourself embroiled in dynamics that were a little bit tense around relationships, or causing you to really reflect on either your role in relationships, because it's you represented by your little avatar Mercury, or the dynamic that people are bringing to you and how you're responding to that. So this is a time to reflect really deeply on the quality of the people in your life, how you can see your future with these people, or do you see the future is without these people? This will be the week where you realize starkly this is what's going on. And this is a process that is still underway right through till the middle of April. Jupiter is ruling that from the house of your future, from the house of friends and acquaintances, and also what you gain from others in terms of support and so on. Jupiter in the 11th is fantastic. It's the house of its joy. It brings you a lot of support from other people, and especially including family, which is Jupiter in Cancer's symbolism. So again, whatever you feel like you might be losing at this time, there's going to be a gain from the loss. So it's just a process that you're in right now. So take all of this really seriously, because you're setting yourself up for a very long-term change. And be clear, sit with yourself. Am I in this relationship just because I'm in this relationship already? Or am I getting out of this relationship just because I'm impulsive at the moment and I'm not really clear? So just notice that this is an opportunity to sit quietly with yourself, and the intuition is speaking really loudly now for you. Don't make a move without checking in. How is my body responding? Am I feeling that this is a go energy, an expansive energy, an energy that brings me energy, or am I feeling compressed and restricted and struggling with this choice? And that will be the instructions that you need. So when you feel expansive, light, and positive, and there's a sense of optimism about whatever the thought that you're having is, that's the direction to keep going in. So all the best for Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, and I'll see you in the next video. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you have a lot of activity in your everyday house of work and busyness, and how you manage your health and your time and your schedule and what you have to do for whatever you need to do during the day, how what you do might or might not support you. So this would be the place I would put a lot of attention in terms of understanding where there's certain things that are just simply not working any longer, either the attitude towards the work or the health or the day-to-day, or the actual structure of the work, the health, or the day-to-day. This is the house of contracts and issues that you might have coming up with relationships. So the sixth house is the price of doing relationship. You could say it's all the stuff that we got to deal with when we're in a relationship. And think of that even more so because Mars, which is ruling the seventh house, is 12th from the seventh. So there's something that might be problematic in a relationship or in a work dynamic, that can be a professional relationship, that needs addressing. It needs a new vision. It needs something to be dealt with in a different way. This is part of the journey, first of the full moon, the new moon dynamic, but also of the Mercury retrograde, especially as Mercury is lingering here on the North Node. It's saying make different choices. Jupiter is helping you in the 10th house. It gives you a higher sense of what is my ambition, what's my overall goal. You'll have a lot more of a sense of wisdom and intuition that you can bring to those decisions, and also a higher-minded way of taking care of your outer life, the professional life or your married life or whatever social impact that you have when you step out your door. Your ruler, Venus, is in the 7th house of relationship. So there is something very strongly indicating that relationships are in a very important way being restructured around this time. So think about these dynamics that are changing in your overall life as a way of restructuring what you need and how you hope for the future to be a little different around your sense of obligations and all the things that you need to do for other people. Don't forget yourself in the equation. Okay, Libra, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. I'll see you in the next video. Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Mars is coming. Your ruler, Mars, is coming on top of the North Node with Mercury. That's a very fiery placement. It brings you a lot of creative dynamics. Can be super sexy because it's the 5th house of love and romance. But it's not very clear. And Mercury rules your 8th house of intimacy. So before you jump in, or get deeper in, or get committed to an intimate relationship, or even an investment, because also Mercury rules your 8th house of other people's money, and the 5th house is the house of gambling and investing, stock, etc. It's all the same thing. And so this is where you want to also be clear before you jump in and commit to fully. This is something that can be really inspiring around your artistic creativity, especially you have Jupiter, which is ruling your 2nd house of money. So if you know what you're doing, this might be really, really favorable for investing, for starting a new project, business project, but give it a few days. As I said in the introduction, don't jump in right away. And also you've got a lot of support with that Jupiter in the 9th house, because it's showing you a higher vision for your life. And that's really, really helpful when we're talking about how you express yourself, Mars in the 5th. So this new moon is all of that and more as you reach out into life. And then it jumps right into your 6th house and you're putting it into action very, very quickly afterwards. So that can be quite literal in terms of the work that you're doing and the new attitude or the new structure that you're bringing to the job that you're doing. That'll be even more evident for you by early April, when Mars moves into that house as well. I'll be back with another video to express more about that. Okay, good luck with that. Scorpio, Moon, and Sun, and Rising. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This is a beautiful time for you to feel your way forward in terms of what you need to as a foundation for your life. How do you need to structure your life and feel secure Feel your new place in the world. How do you need to restructure your relationship with family or your literal property and home and the place where you live? Maybe with whom do I live? Because Jupiter now is bringing more clarity to your house that connects with the marriage and what you receive from marriage, how you receive things from others, what you might inherit. Because also this is another aspect of this. When Mercury here retrograde on the North Node with Mars coming together in the fourth, you may have lost someone. Mars also rules your 12th house of loss, and that can be a loss of someone, that is the death of someone, or it can be a loss that you're only starting to make sense of in terms of how that death impacted you, even if it was a long while ago. And it can also be a new vision around that letting go, a new regenerative energy around how you're relating to your family, to your family of origin, or to your ancestral lineage. This can be very inspiring for you, and especially with Jupiter moving now forward, your ruler moving forward, it gives you a lot more hope and a lot more sense of things are possible going forward. So really, really inspiring time, but it will have for sure come through a time that has been quite challenging. I know from many of you how you've been describing that over the last couple of years. It's not been easy, but think of this as the new vision, a new dream, a new foundation in your emotional sense of self, and also your psychological sense of self that will have a big role to play. Don't engage in mind games that bring you down. Listen to the introduction as I express that. Be clear about your sense of what is possible for you without losing hope around that, and also get help if there's a need to get help from people around you, because there's a lot of opportunity for getting the right kind of help from the right kind of people and plugging into that instead of becoming worried or anxious around things. All right, Sag, make the most of this. There's a very, very optimistic new start as the Sun and the Moon move into your fifth house, trinal to you, and that brings you into this whole new place of seeing yourself. So dream big, which is your forte, Sagittarius. See you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening in your third house. This is the place of willpower, choice, your everyday sort of busyness, how you reach around the community, how you go around in terms of short distance travel or traveling within your region, connecting with people, communicating with people. There's something that needs to be recognized is done here. You're finished, you're done with it, but new beginnings are happening simultaneously to that. Mars is your exaltation ruler, and it's here with Mercury and the North Node. So there's been some realization or a big discussion, conversation, hopefully not a blowout, but something that you have been participating in a way that is bringing you to a completely new sense of self. Your ruler is in the fourth house, and that's been a part of a bigger story since last year, middle of 2025. That will keep you focused on what you need internally, what you need emotionally. And the third house is the house of the mind, and the moon being in the third house with the sun, it's a little bit clouded because this is a new moon, and the moon itself is no longer visible at the new moon. We call it the dark moon or the black moon phase. And here what we have is this dynamic combining with Mercury retrograding on the North Node and Mars on the North Node that can cloud your judgment, or it can have you jumping to conclusions. That's a Mars in the third house thing. Beware of that. If that's a tendency, beware and take back ownership for whatever is going on. I think in the end of the day, it will all work out really well. If this is about ending a contract or beginning a contract, give it a few days. Sit with it for a while. Try not to jump in too soon, because there's so many elements that are clouding judgment or hastiness, obsessiveness, adding to a sense of pushing yourself forward in a way where the details will still need to be clarified later on. Just be careful that you're clear when you do take action. So that's something that's true in the whole week building up to this event of the new moon. And I've done other videos on this build up in terms of the Mars and Mercury conjunction and so on. You can find out more there if you haven't already. You've got now Aquarius on the sun, Aquarius sun, moon, and ascendant, and you've got this happening in your second house. Now, ignore for the moment that the moon has moved out of this configuration. It's because I've been moving the chart around. So what we have here is a new start in your sense of values, money, in the way that you relate to your family, in the way that you connect to whatever it is that supports you or needing to ask for support. Learning that is a big lesson, a big part of the Mercury retrograde lesson for you since the end of February, or all through February, actually, when Mercury first moved into Pisces. And with Mars there, you might find yourself really starting to jump in and take action. Your ruler, Saturn, is in the third house, so whatever is being dealt with here in terms of engagements, new contracts, new relational dynamics, new ways of communicating, it's about being serious for establishing something in the long run. So you bring your values into whatever that means for you. Bring your sense of what is important to you, whether that be material, but most especially spiritual. Your personal goals, your personal values are very, very strongly impacted in these days. Not just this new moon, but the new moon is showing you this new way of showing up. It's an ending in some aspect of the second house, which might include income, or the way that you go about valuing stuff, objects, money, possessions, your own self-worth. And this is the end of something and the beginning of something else. So a really good time to sit with yourself and be very clear. If there is something that you're working hard towards in terms of your finances, again, that probably won't reveal itself until April, but it's a good time to sit quietly and plan. Be careful of jumping in, especially avoid any quick get rich quick schemes. I'm definitely going to have that coffee, and then have a sense that you every time you wake up, every morning you wake up, yes, this is the right thing. There's no doubt there. This is the right direction. Keep going there. Second and eighth house also has something to do with our sexuality and our intimacy around all kinds of dynamics in the give and take of relationship. And this is part of a story that you might relate to. Mercury is also ruling your fifth house of love, as well as the eighth house of intimacy. And so that axis might have you also questioning issues around those things, including trust, issues of trust. And are your values in alignment with the values of that important other? All right, good luck with all of this. I'll see you in the next video. So Pisces, tragically, at your new moon, we've lost the new moon. So I'm afraid I'm not going to fiddle with that because it will just take us out of alignment even more. But just know, this is your new moon. You will see that at length in the description, in the introduction of this. And here what we have is a lot of energy of inspiration, renewal that is coming through shedding, coming through letting go, coming through a realization that enough is enough. You're moving on. This could be about leaving a relationship, or it could be about starting a relationship in a new way that feels much more aligned. And this is something you can take your time with. There will be a sense of pressure, maybe frustration or urgency around what you're doing. But it's a really important thing that you give some time to all of this, that you recognize that you might not be seeing clearly. You've got Mercury, which is ruling your seventh house, where we find the south node, but it's retrograde, it's in detriment, it's in fall, and it's on the north node. And so you might be under illusions of certain things. And would that be that the person is maybe not the same person you think they are, or would that be that you think they've done something that they didn't do? Or there's some miscommunication between you. So whatever that is, sit down with yourself and recognize that here there can be an actual lack of clarity and a need to ask clarifying questions as you go forward. Jupiter is in your fifth house, and this brings a lot of good fortune. It brings a lot of good luck. So whatever this is that needs clarifying, whatever it is that you're stripping away, letting go, remodeling, doing differently, it's going to be productive. It'll be very fruitful. Mars is ruling your ninth house of your sense of your vision for your life, for who you are, for what life means to you, what you have faith in. And so this can also be the driver behind whatever is going on here. And you stand up for yourself and you see things in a way that you didn't have perhaps the information or the courage to take action on, but you're starting now and you're going to take an action in a new direction that is in your best interest. So there we are, Pisces. Thank you everyone for listening. And I will come back with another video describing the next couple of days because there's a lot of intense aspects coming up. Thanks for being here.